Welcome back to another edition of the Backyard Sports Talk. This is up to episode number 12. I am Reid Jaco
And I am his partner, Danny Jaco, his father.
We had a week off due to Mother's Day, and I was kind of under the weather towards the end of last week. And with summer arise, and I am now out of school for summer break. We are going to release our episodes on Wednesdays through the summer. It just makes so much more sense, so we're not trying to bust our necks and break our necks trying to get everything ready to go on a weekend. It makes much more sense, and we can kind of get almost a night after edition from Raw each week and kind of get thoughts about that. But going ahead and getting started here.
Plus, the total weekend from sports can be summed up.
Absolutely. Because there is some stuff that does happen on a Sunday night that I would have to wait until late at night to get everything ready to go with.
Especially Sunday night football.
Sunday night football.
Sunday night baseball.
That would happen. Well, I mean, you think about it, Sunday night football, that'll start in the fall.
Right.
And then with Sunday night baseball, it usually goes on. I'm an old man at heart. I like to be in bed by no later than 10:30 or 11 most times. So, when I have to do this, I mean, it's no big deal, but I mean, it also gets into my work life and everything, and makes much more sense right now to do it during the week. Anyway, so going back a week, with everything that's happened, we went to Backlash that was in St. Louis. It was last Saturday night. And what's your initial thoughts from the show?
I thought it was a good show. I thought it was good matches. I don't know that I wasn't disappointed really with anything. I kind of was a little shocked in some ways that Randy Orton lost in his hometown. That Randy Orton was actually pinned in his hometown. I know there was interference and stuff. I know that, but that doesn't really surprise me either because that's just WWE, But no, I was impressed. I was very impressed with the support that it got from the city or from the community. That place was about full, and I don't know if they called it a sellout, but I was going to go back and look at it. It was definitely a very nice crowd there. So I thought it was good.
For my first professional wrestling event, I thought it was a spectacular event. Probably the match of the night would have probably been the one match with Lyra and Becky. I thought that was
a good match.
Spectacular
match. It was very good.
And
they kind of stole the show there with that one.
Really, they did there for the longest time. And I tell you what, I mean, say what you want about it. I thought the Gunther and McAfee match was pretty good.
It was pretty good.
And I'll be honest, I had low expectations for it, but I thought it was really good.
And Gunther did a good job of working with him. Not only did McAfee do good, so did Gunther. And he got them all excited when
You're talking about Michael Cole.
Michael Cole went to the ring and all that stuff. That got them all excited. It was just a good show. It did a good job. Michael Cole's really loved.
Yeah, I mean, how can you not like Michael Cole though?
Right.
He's a really, really great commentator. He does a fantastic job.
I do want to add something real fast. I think everybody needs to keep longtime broadcaster Jim Ross in their prayers. He's been diagnosed with colon cancer.
Okay, yeah, I hate to hear that.
Did you saw that?
I had not seen that.
He announced it last week, I think. So I think everybody needs to remember him. He's an icon in the business.
Absolutely, I like JR. JR is one heck of a commentator. He does a fantastic job wherever he's at.
I mean, he was where Michael Cole was at for many. Plus, absolutely. he was over talent relations too.
Yes, he's done a great job. So fast forwarding, you have any more remarks from Backlash that you would like to discuss real quick before we move on here?
No, not really. Like I said, I was really proud of it. I thought they gave us, 5 matches? And they were very good matches. They were all, they weren't just no uh, with those squash matches, and it was good. No, it was good. I had no problem with it. Like I said, I really liked the main events. So no, they were all quality matches. Was not disappointed. Would be happy to do it again.
And I was super excited to see my favorite luchador of all time, the El Grande Americano, make an appearance during the Fatal 4-Way.
Yeah, yeah. So it was good. It was a good show, and like I said, I would be all about going again.
Absolutely. So moving on, we got some WWE news here for this week, and then we have the card right now for the Saturday night's main event, which will take place this Saturday. First, Roxanne Perez and Rhea Ripley will join Alexa Bliss in the Women's Money in the Bank ladder match. Though there was a couple of matches that happened on Raw and on SmackDown last week to go ahead and get the qualifiers out of the way for the Women's Money in the Bank match. During the last match with Rhea Ripley, Zoe Stark, and I can never say the other lady's name that was in that match. Anyway, Zoe Stark got hurt in that match. And it was a real injury. I watched it and it looked like it hurt.
Yeah, I mean, she was screaming. I mean, I think it was real. I mean, I think it was really bad. And she had a knee injury once before, 3 or 4 years ago.
Right.
They said. And I think it required surgery. So I don't know if it was. They never did actually say if it was the same knee. Unusual, but maybe they didn't know. But
and I don't know if they know or not, but no, it was definitely a rough. Gahari Sane is, I think I'm saying that right. She's a Asian lady, but overall, I thought the matches were really good on Raw this week. We saw some pretty good ones, and we got some good lining up for a pretty decent Saturday night's main event this Saturday.
That's this Saturday?
Yes, that is this Saturday.
Is that live?
Yes.
The old Saturday night main events were not live. Of course, nothing was live back then. But I think they were recorded. They didn't air back then in the day till like 10 o'clock, 10:30 at night on the East. And I think maybe they were that earlier that night, maybe. I'm not sure about that. But anyway.
Well, back in the day, I mean, you didn't have social media, the internet that, now it's really difficult to try to do a taping and keep all the secrets.
Yeah, that's very true.
Because, if you were at a taping and, for example, R-Truth was to beat John Cena, wouldn't you be all about posting it on social media right when it happened? But, half the world, didn't know about it because it's not been aired yet. But, well, by golly, you were there, but you figured it out.
Years ago, the only thing that was live was pay-per-views. You know what the first show that was aired live weekly?
Even Raw wasn't aired live?
It was all recorded. It was all taped. You know what the first show was live?
I'm going to guess WrestleMania.
Nitro.
Oh, really?
It was the first weekly show. Okay. Oh, pay-per-views were live.
Okay. All the pay-per-views
were live. Yeah, but the first live weekly show was when Nitro. And and Raw still was not live. It was still taped. And so that's when Bischoff would get on TV on Monday nights and give away, tell everything that happened on WWE that early that night.
Oh,
and making he'd get on there and announce there's no need to turn to the other channel, he'd say. Mick Foley beat such and such for such and such, and he'd go through the whole thing and give them away. And that's when the war was starting. It was really entertaining. But he was live. WCW would be live, and they'd give away everything.
So, going back to let's go to the timeline here. Since we're kind of on this before we get into the Saturday night's main event card, let's get into the timeline of the Monday Night Wars. When did that truly start?
95. About 95.
So overall, it probably went on for about 7 years because the sale actually went through in 02 or 03?
Through March of 01. It went through. It lasted a little over 5 to 6 years.
Okay.
Really, the true war lasted about 3 or 4 years because the last year WCW just tanked. And Bischoff had left, and it just totally tanked. And they wasn't even hardly a competition. And that's when they just fell out, and WWF bought or WWE bought them. But no, prior to I think that Bischoff took over in '94, and things started changing. They brought Hogan on. Savage came on. Some other people started coming in, and all of a sudden, Bischoff called a meeting and told them that they were going to come up with a live show on Monday night, and they was going to directly compete against WWE. And everybody thought he was crazy because they weren't grown yet; they hadn't grown much yet. But they started airing the live show, and he started giving away that stuff, and they started making it more reality based instead of cartoonish. They started cussing on WCW. They were getting kind of vulgar, and then they just started shooting up. Well, WWF had to. That's when the Attitude Era, so to speak, they had to do the same thing to survive, and they went a step farther with it though. They went, like the Vince thing and Trish on her knee. They went above. They even went farther with the WCW was kind of limited what they could do because of Turner Broadcast. Turner owned all that. Right. There was a limit on it, but USA kind of let. I think USA was struggling too, and they just let Vince run with it. I think they got like FCC violations and stuff all the time, but it was probably making more money than the FCC violations were caught. They just kept doing it, and that did not change until after WWE had bought WCW, and it went on for a little while longer, and that's when they started a lot of programming. A lot of advertisers was not wanting to advertise under that format. So that's when they started changing to a PG era, and they picked up things like Doritos and sodas and candies and Mars and stuff like that.
Yeah, right. I got you. But I will say about the and of course, I was barely a year old when the sale went through. I guess I wasn't even a year old if it was in March. But I wish that what would have happened was they would have kept a little bit of the WCW in and kept and say like one of the show names for like the second weekly show is to name it something after WCW.
Right. Well, in a dream world, what would have happened? Bischoff had the money. There was a group called Fusion Media Ventures. I don't know who they were. Along with Bischoff, had raised the money to purchase WCW, over $100 million, and they had raised the money. They were going to buy it and take it over. Well, the need to know information was in that in the middle of they were getting ready to sell it for $100 million. Also, Turner had been taken over by Time Warner, and Time Warner. Oh, by the way, we're not going to air it anymore either. It's like, well, we can't buy this if we don't have a place to air it. Well, Turner said, we're getting out of the wrestling business. We're pulling the plug on the whole thing. Well, then Vince bought the whole thing for like $5 million because it was not worth nothing hardly.
Basically, you just bought the name.
He bought the the name, all the copyrights, the video library, and stuff like that because there was nowhere to go with it. But if Turner would have kept airing it, so Ted loved the wrestling. That's why Ted was in it, because he loved it. Well, Ted was really done wrong when he merged with Time Warner. He understood that he was going to have the same power. He was going to be the CEO, and he was for a short time. And then they ousted him because when he merged, he didn't have controlling interest. Time Warner was a big company,
right?
And when Turner merged with him, then he didn't actually have controlling interest, like kind of like Vince didn't, when he merged. So Time Warner took control of everything. They pulled the plug on wrestling, and so Bischoff and them just had to back out. They couldn't buy it because where are they going to show it at? So
they couldn't have found another.
That was asked to
place.
Bischoff before. When they were willing to spend $100 million, it needed to be a high priority network like a Turner.
Well, of course,
and there wasn't as many little networks back then as there is now.
Well, this is all just talk because this is 20 years old,
right?
25 years old. But what they could have done, because these lawyers and these attorneys in the TV places can get creative. They could have went to Time Warner, been like, look, you give us X amount of time to find a new network, but you still continue to air.
Right.
And, such and such. And then at the end of this contract, if it's up, then we're just done.
The problem with Time Warner was they were a bunch of wealthy, probably Northern and West Coast people that looked at wrestling. Wrestling is a Southern thing, and they were ashamed of it. They didn't want it on their network. Bischoff's told that story many times. But
I mean, I think, back in the 90s, of course, I've heard Bischoff say this is, I mean, he needed a way to grow the actual place, the crowd. So he went over to Japan.
Right.
And watched Japan, because Japan had it down way before.
Yes, before we did.
We did over here in the States.
They wasn't cartoonish with their stuff like Vince was in the late 80s and early 90s. They were, had the reality stuff.
That's on my bucket list, is to go over and watch.
That would be cool.
Japanese promotion. What's that? What's the biggest promotion over there? And then we'll
there was the All Japan Pro Wrestling. And then there used to be the
what's the one that
is
it the one you just mentioned that's partnered with AEW right now?
So yeah,
because they share a lot of their.
There was 2 promotions. I don't know what happened to the one, but the one All Japan All Pro Wrestling was their big one. Double CP I think was one, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. So anyway, moving on now. So the Saturday night main event is this Saturday that we mentioned. So we have some interesting matches going on here. The first match is a Cena versus R-Truth match.
It kind of seemed surprising to see R-Truth in a main event.
Well, I
like R-Truth.
I don't know if it's going to be like a true main event, but it's going to be the Saturday night main event thing. I don't know if, of course, with it being Cena, it'll probably be a main event.
I thought it was kind of cool to see R-Truth show up at Backlash.
Yeah, for sure. And did you see it down? Because where this is all kind of stemming from is R-Truth went to congratulate Cena in the back, and then Cena threw him through a table.
Yeah.
So this is where this is all coming from.
So I guess Triple H is going to let him have a match.
So I'm really interested to see about that, and I'm glad it's on it's on a main event. And not a big pay-per-view.
Right.
Because that, this makes much more sense.
I thought the Uso and Logan Paul was kind of an interesting match.
Okay. So, I know, me, I'm kind of a Logan Paul fanboy when it comes to the wrestling. I don't like him as a person, so to say, because he's made some poor choices in his life. But when it comes to Logan Paul the wrestler, I love Logan Paul the wrestler. And I hope that he wins. I don't think he will.
Is it for the title?
Yes.
It is for the title, okay.
But I hope he does. That would be awesome.
So which one's considered the main event?
I assume the main event will be the CM Punk, Sami Zayn, Seth Rollins, and Braun Breaker.
Okay. That'll be a good one. That'll be interesting.
But I'll be honest, this is actually a really good card. I mean, for just a Saturday night main event, because the steel cage with Priest and McIntyre. Of course, we saw those two go at it, Backlash, a couple of weeks ago.
But it's a cage this time.
It's a steel cage this time. So it's really going to be interesting, going to be a lot of fun. I'm definitely going to be watching. And
what time's that on?
I think it's like a 7 o'clock start.
7 Central?
Yes. So, really looking forward to that. The CM Punk and Sami Zayn, you need to go back and watch that happen on Raw on Monday. But then they come out there and then they start going after Rollins and Breaker.
You think they're going to get along, Zayn and Punk?
Well, I think it may be at least for first five minutes.
I wonder
or so.
how long Seth Rollins and Braun Breaker will get along. When Seth starts complaining to him about something like he always does his partners, I wonder if Braun Breaker won't.
Well, here's my theory on this is I think eventually that Paul Heyman is going to be broken away from Seth Rollins and just with Braun Breaker. And I think that's going to happen.
They could make Braun Breaker big.
Yes.
And I think he will be.
I think that's what's happening because, he's already over, but, now he's getting into the main event package.
I still say that they should have kept the name Steiner.
Well, I like the Braun Breaker.
Yeah.
He's a big old boy. So, really quick, moving on from wrestling, we had the Saturday Night Main Event stuff going on. We have some quick MLB updates. Juan Soto, who signed a huge contract with the New York Mets, was criticized for hustle. They're saying he's not hustling. So, I mean, if you sign all that money, you got to be willing to put in 110% effort to your play. And there's a lot of people in the media and outside of the media saying that he is not hustling like he should. Um, and that tends to happen when you have a player who signs a big contract. He's comfortable and he's, all that 700 and some odd $1 million that he signed is going to be guaranteed. So, I mean, if you don't have to run and, tear a muscle, break a bone, why do that? That's not how I would play sports, but that's how a lot of these guys, I think, that sign these huge contracts view their contracts.
But is his heart really into it? I mean, is he really?
Well, I don't know right now at this point. Um, Luis Robert talks at the trade deadline. Potentially, he is a center fielder for the Chicago White Sox. The Chicago White Sox are terrible once again, so that could be a potential trade factor to a team that could use a center fielder. And even his teammate, Miguel Vargas, who was traded from the Dodgers to the White Sox a couple of years ago in a heartbreaking trade, could be on their way out of Chicago into a playoff atmosphere. Paul Skeens, another trade deadline talk is, could he be traded this year? His current contract, rookie contract, is up in 2029. But there's a lot of speculations that the Pittsburgh Pirates will not rebuild around Paul Skeens or even build around Paul Skeens. He is one of the best pitchers in the major leagues right now, but there's a lot of speculations that the Pirates won't spend any money or won't put out any effort to try to build a team around Paul Skeens.
When have they put out any effort to try to build a team around anybody? Seriously.
I mean, you're right. I mean, they had a couple of decent teams in the early 2010s, but I mean, since then they haven't done anything. And before that, like
is it just the lack of spending money? Is it the commitment? What's the deal?
All of the above, I think. I mean, I'll be honest with you, there's a lot of problems in Pittsburgh that I don't know about because I mean, yes, they're not one of the top market teams, but you would think, being in Pennsylvania, that they would be able to make some money and win.
I'd say they are making money. They just don't want to spend any.
Probably. You're probably right. So quickly, I'll go through the standings. The first place teams. The Yankees are in the first place at 28-19 in the East. The Detroit Tigers are 32-17 in first place in the Central, and the Seattle Mariners are 27-20 first place in the West.
What's the Detroit? What's their manager?
AJ Hinch.
He's done it again. Had been doing it again.
He's doing it again. He is doing it again. In the East, the NL East, the Philadelphia Phillies are 30-18 in first place. But since we just mentioned Juan Soto, the New York Mets are in second place at 29-30. So there's a really good competition there. And I mean, talking about the East there, the Atlanta Braves are 24-24, only 6 games back after a tremendously slow start to start the season. They're getting healthy, they're getting better. It's definitely going to be a fun summer in the National League East for those top 3 teams. And a good team like the Washington Nationals, who are, yes, 22-27, they could play a key role in being a thorn in somebody's side and just picking somebody apart and being like, I'm going to be a spoiler.
Where's the Cardinals?
In the National League Central, the Cardinals have done fabulous of late. They are in second place behind the Chicago Cubs. The Chicago Cubs are 29-20. The Cardinals are 27-22, only two games out of the Central. The Cincinnati Reds are 25-25, and the Milwaukee Brewers are 24-25. Those are the top four teams in the Central because I think it's a 4-team race at the end of the day. And I'll be honest with you, the Cardinals have shocked me. They had a huge winning streak here recently. They lost it over the weekend. But I am really surprised at how they played of late, and I commend them for it.
They don't have a lot of household names on there, do they?
I mean, Wilson Contreras, Nolan Arenado, and Lars Newbart.
Yeah, those names.
Well, Nolan Arenado is going to be first ballot.
Yeah. I know that. I know him.
Wilson Contreras is, really good. And I love Lars Newbart. He's Japanese descent. He's a huge factor. But no, they've got some young guys in there that are really doing good for them. My biggest thing is I don't know how long their pitching can sustain through the summer into the fall. It'll be really curious to see how they do that. Do they go to Miami or to Sacramento or Los Angeles Angels and try to get somebody in a trade? And there's just some holes in the pitching depth, if you ask me. So we're going to see how that turns out in the future and the rest of the summer. So the NL West is a doozy. So buckle up for this one. First place is the Dodgers at 30-19, which is pretty expected.
And they kind of started off rough, didn't
they? They really started off slow. They ended up, actually, two of their longest tenured players have been released over the last couple of weeks. In second place, we have the San Francisco Giants at 29-20. Third place is the San Diego Padres at 27-19. And the Arizona Diamondbacks at 26-23.
Wow.
And in last place, now buckle up for this one, after the firing of Buddy Black, the Colorado Rockies are 8-40.
Ain't that something? That's the worst I've ever heard of.
They're not careful. They're going to lose 150 games.
Wouldn't they know that going into this season that they were problems?
You would think. I don't know what
they got to be affecting their ticket sales.
Absolutely. When you're 5-18 at home, you should be playing good at home. Honestly, I'll be completely honest with you. They should have all 8 wins at home. Because theoretically speaking, they should have all of their 8 wins at home.
Can you imagine running around Denver wearing a Rockies jersey right now?
Oh my goodness, I couldn't imagine.
And it's sad because that's their team, and I'm sure they like their team, but their ownership need to come on. You can do better than that.
Oh, absolutely. So real quick, the end of the season for the United Football League is upon us. We are getting ready there. We are really close to the end. We've got just a week or two left. We got this week and next week. We have the 9th and the 10th week, but we have some playoff entries. The DC Defenders make a playoff appearance at 6-2. And the St. Louis Battlehawks make a playoff appearance at 6-2 as well. And the Battlehawks have won 4 straight games. They are 2. There's 2 season games left. 2 regular season. And over in the USFL side of things, we have in first place right now, who's probably going to end up being first place, is the Michigan Panthers at 6-2. And the Birmingham Stallions at 5-3, who have got another playoff spot. how the playoffs works is going to be the Michigan Panthers and Birmingham Stallions will play for the USFL side, and the Battlehawks and the Defenders will play for the XFL side, and then the winner of those two games will play in the championship game in St. Louis. Excuse me.
Real quick on UFL before we go on, I read this the other day and I was double checking. They'll be back in 26 and they're planning to expand to 10 teams next year.
I really am excited about that. We talked about it. We went to a game, and it was a lot of fun, and hopefully we can get to another game.
And you got to see that the dome wasn't falling down like you thought it was.
Right. Probably won't make it to another game this year because there's no more home games in St. Louis unless we go all out and spend half of our life savings and go to the championship game.
Yeah.
Of course, I don't know how expensive the championship game will be.
It probably won't be as bad as you think.
It won't be anything like a Super Bowl or a World Series. But
probably about the same as a regular NFL game.
Probably.
Or maybe a playoff game.
Mm-hmm. But another thing, I'll get back to you. We are going to go to an NFL game this fall. I'm going to save up definitely because my Texans are going to play in Kansas City, and it's going to be a little better of a date this time than it was last year. Because last year it was like on Christmas, and it was just not possible.
Well, not a good time.
But this year is going to definitely be a better time, and I'll get with you on that. But
okay.
Going over NFL, you want to go ahead and read off our NFL news real quick?
Yeah, Nick Sirianni signs a contract extension. I don't know any of the details of it.
I don't either, but to me, that's a no-brainer.
Yeah, absolutely. And
real quick, I'll let you finish. He should never be on a contract year for the success he's had up there in Philly.
No, absolutely not. There should not be any question about it. Every season's been winning season and win the
right.
So no, there shouldn't be any question about that. Although Philly can be difficult. They'll pull. Because
here's the thing, Philly, New York, and Chicago are three towns where the media will go crazy.
Yeah, eat you alive. Brock Purdy, which they should have done this, I thought already, but they were saving money, I guess. He just signed a 5-year extension worth $265 million. And prior to that, I don't know how much money he was actually making. But
he was Mr. Irrelevant, so low draft pick, not a lot of signing bonus like a number one first overall pick.
Now he's getting paid.
He is now getting what he deserves.
And there's going to be this year 6 international games on the schedule. I saw that. What's there, 2 in London?
I think there's
Germany.
2 in London, 2 in Germany. Here, real quick. So I didn't count this as the thing, but there is going to be a Sao Paulo game in September. I didn't count that as one of the actual international games, but there's going to be one in Dublin, 1, 2, 3 in London, 1 in Berlin, and 1 in Madrid.
There's 3 in London? Okay.
Yes.
But anyway, that's a big deal, and they've been going well when they go there, going real well. And last, we'll mention about, not a big story, but Joe Burrow, the schedule's out, and Joe Burrow is not very happy because this is going to be the 4th consecutive road game that they were going to be playing in Baltimore on Thanksgiving. And he is ready for one of them games to be in Cincinnati, which I don't blame him, really.
I don't blame him whatsoever.
And bringing this to attention to people, the media and the public.
So is this now? You read this article and brought this to me. Was this a prime time?
Yes.
Okay.
Primetime game.
Now,
not just Thanksgiving, but primetime.
Now, I think personally, if you have a good rivalry, because I think this has been a pretty good rivalry. Mm-hmm. Change up their primetime schedules a little bit.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, I agree, but those 3 previous trips that they've been to Baltimore won all of them.
Right.
So I get it. Yeah, it's time to bring it to Cincinnati.
For sure. For example, how many times did Peyton and Tom play each other?
A lot.
A lot.
Yes,
okay.
It was always exciting games.
But how many of those times do you think was back and forth rather than just, say every time at New England or every time at Indy or Denver? I mean, they were all
back and forth.
So I think if you're going to have a decent rivalry, because I think the Jackson and Burrow rivalry is pretty good, as well as the rivalry between Buffalo and Kansas City is a pretty good rivalry. Yes. Those two games every year need to be back and forth.
Right.
One year be at Kansas City for the Buffalo, one year be at Buffalo, one year be at Cincinnati, one year be at Baltimore.
Did you see real fast, this is NFL related, that the Lions are going to be playing Kansas City again this year? That's just 2 years ago they played.
Well, see, now they've redone how they do the schedule, and they do it solely like on rivalries and everything.
Oh, is that what's going on?
Because Kansas City and the Texans have played each other back to back years, like for like 3 or 4 years straight.
No, they're not in the same division, are they?
They're not in the same division. So,
well, Detroit and Kansas City, different conference.
But that's a pretty good rivalry.
Yeah. You remember 2 years ago that Detroit, it was the opening game of season.
Yes.
And Detroit beat Kansas City.
Yes.
And that was when we really started seeing that Detroit might be a real team.
Yes. Well, so this is the podcast for this week. We appreciate you guys for joining. Dad here, he's got some other commitments he has to attend to. So we're going to go ahead and call it quits on this one. Thank you for joining in on this one, and we hope to hear you on the next one.
Yeah, we'll see you soon. We're really intent on trying to grow our podcast, and ideas bouncing around that we're going to try to do, so stick with us and see where we can get this thing to go. But anyway, I got prior commitments for the day, and I've got to get out of here, but certainly do appreciate you joining us today, and we will see you again next week.